Hey guys, it's JC here. You're probably wondering, what in the world is the Real 15? Well, I know time is precious, and it might be difficult to carve out a moment to read the word or to just be encouraged. I wanted to create a simple, bite-sized podcast series for busy believers. Welcome to the realest 15 minutes of your day. In just a short amount of time, 15 minutes or less, I will bring you thought-provoking, biblical mini-studies that you can meditate on as you work, exercise, clean, juggle, the normal stuff. Okay, let me stop talking because we ain't got time to waste. This is The Real 15. I can still remember the sinking feeling in my stomach. Anxiety started taking over, and for the first time in my business, I felt hopeless. All the work that I had built was unraveling. I so desperately wanted this to work, but I didn't see how it could. Time was ticking to fix a problem I had no answers to. I had made a huge mistake with one of my products that left customers very unhappy. I was like a deer in headlights. I wanted to run, but the bright light froze me in place. Then I remembered another girl boss that I had met through Instagram. She might have a solution for me, I had thought. To be completely honest and real right now, I did not want to ask her for help. I thought it was childish and foolish. In the working world, we would be each other's competition. Two small business owners with online shops, creating similar handmade items. How could I reach out? How could I reach out for help? I would look like a total loser. Or so I thought. But I had no more lifelines to grab. On my own, I had tried to fix the problem, but I truly made it worse. So I leaped and I asked her for help. And to my surprise, she caught me. Right in the middle of my mess, she happily offered up a solution that would redeem my mistake and keep me afloat. I was so grateful and hopeful. I moved forward using her advice like a lifesaver, pulling me back into the boat. And it worked. I was able to shift my process and create a better product than before. It taught me something. We don't have to be catty or in competition, feeling jealousy over one another's success. We don't have to be stingy about supplies we use or the knowledge that we have that could help somebody else. Now, I understand not giving away all your success secrets. There is something to be said about keeping the integrity of your work and the intimate workings behind your process and business as a secret. And that is totally okay. But what about sharing your favorite resources or tips when someone is over their head, trying to keep their heads above the raging waters? We could build together and push each other up so no one else falls. Social media can be a double-edged sword. 1 minute we're happily in love with what someone is accomplishing, getting lost in their little pretty squares or posts, and becoming their biggest fangirls. Then we feel our emotions swing and go the total opposite way. We start to pull back away from connecting, looking for validation in numbers and hearts on our own, threatened by people who seem to have more than we do, slowly picking apart all that we have made. Comparison becomes familiar, and community sounds like a fairy tale. But I'm here to remind us, myself included, that there's room for everyone to make it. Whether it's someone else who is involved in a similar ministry, just like you, or someone who shares the same profession. Community is a way more fun thing to do than competition, right? Isn't it exhausting to us yet? Having to always compare and weigh and measure what we do versus what other people do? I am so over it. Are you? I mean, how many times are we going to keep mulling over what somebody else is doing and compare it to what we are doing? How many times are we going to feel jealousy and all these crazy emotions towards another person just because they have something different that you like? Especially when it comes to ministry or when it comes to business. These are places where community is supposed to help us thrive so that we can learn from each other, not compete against one another. Because what are we really competing for? Validation? Success? Followers? I don't know. But it just seems kind of silly to me now. Especially at this age. I just turned 36 this year, and honestly, the older I get, the more I realize that jealousy is such a time waster. It really is. We spend so much energy mulling over things and thinking about things and pondering about things that honestly don't even matter. It's not moving us forward. If anything, it's keeping us stuck. We feel paralyzed and we don't feel like we know what to do because we're too busy looking side to side instead of looking forward ahead to where we're going. If I had kept to myself without reaching out to that fellow girl boss a few years ago and asked her for help, I would have drowned in my business mistake. It would really have crumbled everything. Sometimes we have to let go of preconceived ideas in order to embrace the beautiful realities. We all have something to offer, and we can learn from one another as we grow. This is why I really love talking to other creatives who ask me questions. I get people all of the time sending me DMs on Instagram and asking about how do I start a podcast? How do I write a book? How do I do this and how do I do that? Because I honestly understand. I've been there. I know how it feels to get overwhelmed and get anxiety and not sure what the next step is. And can you imagine if you're in those kind of feelings and then you reach out to somebody and they just shut you down and they just tell you, oh, I can't tell you that. You can just go to Google or you could just go to Pinterest. I mean, that would make me feel kind of dumb because it took me so long to reach out. It takes so long for me to get to that place where I'm asking for help. And so we have to understand that when people are actually asking for help, they probably went through a mental battle before they actually asked for help. And so when we don't actually give them help, we're not reaching out the way that they need to. And like I said before, I'm not saying sharing everything that you know. It could just be lovingly and being kind and telling them in a gentle way which way to go. As just a little nudge, some guidance. That's all it could be. Like I said, I've been there and I'm still there. I am not too above you where I can't help you. And I've had that happen where I was learning about blogging or learning about a small business and I reached out to a huge account and I would get responses that would be kind of heartbreaking. They would not even tell me where to go, what website to look at, what resources to research. And I was crushed. And I would never want to do that to somebody else and make them feel crushed if they reached out and asked me for help. Proverbs 27:17 says, "Iron sharpeneth iron, so a man sharpeneth the countenance of his friend." Now, countenance here could mean the face, meaning changing their face. If they're sad, then we can make them happy. If they're upset, if they're confused, we can change their face. It kind of got me thinking of a visual, like when you have to sharpen a knife. Sometimes you could do that with another knife. They both become sharp, strong, ready to work how they were created to work. And this is what we must do together. Add strength. It won't take away what we already have, but will make us better too. We can also become stronger when we help out somebody else. Community is a sisterhood, a band of beauties from all over the world with similar fire inside. Because we can't do this alone. We can't. If we tried, we could only go so far before we would actually need to learn more from somebody else. It's pouring ourselves into one another so that we are all filled up. Community between women of like-mindedness is not only powerful, it's necessary for survival. So the next time I look at another girl boss's success and feel the insecurity tearing me down, I want to remember that there's room for her. There's room for all of us, each one of us, to make it. And her story should inspire me. Our stories should inspire each other, not make us jealous. It should keep the fire going within us. And when we have those days where we don't feel good enough and we don't feel like we can go on and we want to quit, we should be able to put fire within each other. That's how we can make a difference in business, life, church, everywhere. Community over competition always. And I understand we grow up in a world that's always competing. We want the better grade. We want to get the award. We want to get high honors. We want to get student of the month. We want to win that contest so that we can get free pizza on Fridays. We want to be number one. We want to win against the other team in a sport. We want to be the ones that get lifted up and considered a hero. We all have that feeling inside of us that we want to get to be number one, to be the best. But what if the only way to be the best is by lifting up others first? In fact, the Bible talks about this in Matthew 20:16. It says, "So the last shall be first, and the first last, for many be called, but few chosen." Now these words were read so we know that Jesus was the one that uttered these simple words. What does that mean? The last shall be first and the first last. I was just talking to my oldest son about putting people first. I homeschool, and it's just such a joy to actually sit down and have these real conversations with him. But we were talking about a story in one of his language arts books, and it was talking about a parrot who actually started collecting food while all the animals were asleep. Now, this parrot collected food for himself to eat, but he also collected it just to keep. And the story continued and talked about how silly it was for this parrot to have his whole home, his whole room full of this food that he couldn't even sleep. He couldn't get comfortable because the food was all over the place. But he also couldn't get comfortable because his stomach was full as well. And then when everybody woke up, his friend said, "I'll make you a glass of milk because I know you're not feeling good." And so Monkey made Parrot a glass of milk instead of being hateful and instead of retaliating. He was showing love and kindness. And so we started talking about what it means to be greedy. And I asked my son what it meant. And so we had this really in-depth discussion about being greedy. And I talked to him. He's 8 years old. And I mentioned to him how if he was in line with a friend and there was one cupcake left at the bakery and it was his favorite one and his friend really wanted the cupcake too, would he let his friend go first? Or would he try to rush so he can be there first? This is what I'm talking about, is we are always trying to rush to be the first or to be the one or to be number one. And we're ignoring how people are feeling. And we're ignoring about putting others first too. And it's not saying that we can't have some lighthearted competition. And it's not saying that we can't work hard and that we can't be the best. But it's also saying that we need to recognize that other people have goals too. And that if we can help them reach their goals, it's going to be enriching to us. When we hold up one another, it makes us better. And we have to be reminded that Jesus held us up and sacrificed himself for our good. And that we can do the same with each other and we will never lose. We all win.